Good evening and welcome to another edition of Kim's Korner. I'm Kim Brown, your host, and today I have with me Coach Hartman.
Hello.
And Tyrone is your first name, right? But everybody everybody knows him as Coach Hartman. And he has a book called From Boy to Man. So before we get into that, Coach, give us a little background history of yourself.
Okay, well, I just want to thank you for inviting me to your show. Background history of myself.
Born and raised?
Born and raised in Newark, New Jersey. Born and raised in Newark, New Jersey, on Hawthorne Avenue area.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the week section of Newark. And
what schools did you attend?
Oh, very good. Let me see.
I always like to find that out.
Well, actually, if we start at the school I attended, my tale actually starts there concerning my book and, my life. In a lot of details if I start there. Would you like me to start there?
Asked what school did you attend?
I attended Bergen Street School.
Okay.
Elementary
Which is
school,
closed now.
Which is closed now. And really at the Bergen Street School, I made an executive decision there to begin a negative lifestyle.
Okay. Now what grade did Bergen go up to then? Did it go up to 6th grade or the 8th grade?
8th grade.
Okay. Because back then I think we had junior high schools. We have junior year, so a lot of schools went to the 6th grade back then too. Yes. Some of them went to the 8th grade.
I understand. I think it was 8th grade then. Yeah, actually, because I graduated from Bergen Street School, and I was a pretty smart kid. I went to. After that, I got accepted. It was a test back then. It was called Irvington Tech.
Oh yeah, because they had all the North Tech, Irvington Tech, Bloomfield. Tech, yeah. And they were all male schools.
Yes.
Now they're not like that anymore.
Yeah.
So they've changed.
A little smart kid, kind of, sort of, I would say. And I kind of went to Irvington Tech.
Okay, you kind of went to.
I kind of went to Irvington Tech.
So somehow something got you got
a lot of hooky, a lot of negative influence that I allowed to, myself to participate in. I actually didn't graduate.
Okay.
From high school. That's why it becomes really detailed. We can really move into another area of my life if we like to. Because after high school, like the 9th grade, I dropped out.
Okay.
I dropped out of 9th grade.
Why?
Why? Good question. I call it, I was the puppet of materialism.
Okay.
The puppet of materialism grabbed me. I wanted things. I desired things that that I couldn't afford. So I became a drug dealer.
Okay.
Yeah, I became a drug dealer. And
street pharmaceuticals.
Street pharmaceuticals. That's politically correct.
That's what they say now.
Yeah. So I became a drug dealer, and like I said, that executive decision actually when I was 13, 14, when I was in the 8th grade at Bergen Street School. I remember I even detailed it in the book that I was in Bergen Street School in 8th grade. And I was in the hallway with a young man. We 2 boys, and I showed him some cocaine, and I said, this stuff here is going to get me, all the Air Jordan and Guess jeans, Guess jeans back in the day, right? And all the Guess jeans that I want. And from 13, 14 years old, I made that decision to become a drug dealer, then a street pharmaceutical, and my life kind of is a lot of details after that there, a lot of details.
So you made it through.
Yes, I made it through.
A lot of hard knocks.
A lot of hard knocks. I sold drugs on Hawthorne Avenue. This is where I'm from. Sold drugs on Hawthorne Avenue for years.
Jail time.
Yes, definitely, because there's no consequence without behavior. So, with the selling of the drugs and the atmosphere, it was very stimulating, it was very fun. It was just a culture I grew up in. I didn't actually necessarily knew any better. I talk about it in the book. And I seen some role models that I had growing up, maybe the mailman. And I always kind of felt like, I liked that. Peaceful mind. Peaceful mind is
never having to look over your shoulder.
Yeah, I always wanted that on some level, but I really, as they said, did well as a drug dealer. I did actually. So, but what happened is no consequence without, when you
There's consequences for your actions.
For your actions.
And I think a lot of people now, a lot of these youth don't understand that.
Yeah.
You know,
Understandable.
So there's consequences for your actions.
Big time. So my consequences came, had to pay the piper. So when I was 18 years old, actually, I was 18 years old, I got sent down to prison.
Okay, where did you go?
Annandale.
Okay.
For 36 months. Actually, I lost trial. I took a trial. It's all detailed in the book as well. Me selling drugs on a certain level. People came to trial on me and said he was the guy. And so I went to jail for 36 months. And that's when my transition kind of started there.
That's when your life changing.
Yeah. That's when my transition kind of started. I always wanted to go, like when I was out in the streets, selling drugs. I had brand new cars, and I remember going to like West Side. They had like a GED program at West Side, but I would pull up in a brand new car. So it didn't.
So you ended up getting your GED?
Yes.
Okay.
I ended up getting my GED downstate. Yep, I got my GED. I call it in the book a good enough diploma. I got a good enough diploma. I got that GED downstate. I learned a lot of things while I was down there, a lot of carpentry. And the most important thing I learned is that I can be more in life. The first book that I read was Malcolm X. I'll talk about it. The autobiography of Malcolm X. And I said, this guy was tough. This guy was real. And he changed his life drastically. And I wanted to be that. I wanted to be someone that changed my life and be a role model and a leader, actually. And also I detail in the book that as I grew up, people always say, you're a leader, something about you. You don't even look like you belong out here. But that was my lifestyle back then. So the transition really happened. And I also detail in the book, down Annandale, there was a program, and I detail in the book that it was this program called America I Can, with Jim Brown was in it. Jim Brown was like the football player. Yeah, he was the the executive director. He paid the money or whatever for this program. And I remember sitting and he sent his squad in, to this facility where I was jailed. And these men came in. And I saw this gentleman, I talked about in his book, his name was Shaheed Watson. And I saw this guy, man, he just looked powerful walking in. And I was just looking at him like, wow, I would love to be that. He captured people and it was just powerful. And from that day with other stuff, I said, I
that's when your transition.
Yeah, transition really kicked in. And so
you only went to prison at one time for this?
Yes.
And that once was enough?
Once was enough. Once was enough. Why? Because, my leadership qualities really took off. My leadership qualities really took off. I got my GED downstate, and from there I transitioned right into Essex County College. Actually where I work today as a professor. Okay. We'll get there later. So I transitioned right to Essex County College. Yeah, and it's just a lot of detail. When it comes to my change process, I chose to. It was very difficult, my transition out of the prison system, because it was a lot of men around me that didn't shake the negative behaviors. So when I shook the negative behaviors, it was kind of like, how could I put it, the word peer pressure, in a sense. And peer pressure. So people would look at me, they used to call me back then Mutai. They used to call me Mutai, It's like, Mutai, so you going to school? This is what you're doing now? Really? Jail changed you? Really? You gonna let jail change you like that? So you go to prison and now you positive. So it get that negative.
Yeah, because it had that effect on you. It doesn't have that effect on a lot of other people.
Understand?
Sometimes they got to go 5 or 10 times. I don't know why they like to be in there.
Well, it's very dynamical reason why.
And the system is designed for failure too.
Yes, that's actually an element as well. So I had to deal with the peer pressure of, I used to be someone from the streets, selling drugs, everyone knew me. Now I'm going to school, now I'm a positive guy, and that kind of confused people. it's confusing. So I always tell individuals, it's not like they, wanted me to fail. It's just that what they were used to, like the word family comes from the word familiar. They were familiar with me being a drug dealer, being a negative side. So when they saw something positive, they couldn't compute. It didn't register. So it's not like they wanted me to fail. It's just they wasn't comfortable with my new role. But I knew I had to become comfortable with my new role. So I became more and more comfortable with my new role over the years. And, I made education my focus. I knew education was going to be what took me to the next level. Education and good people. Okay.
So then that brought you to... What brought you to From Boy to Man?
Whoa, the book?
Yeah.
Oh, but what brought me to the book is, right now we're talking, and this has been 16, this has been 20 years in the making, because all this happened being on the prison was 20 years ago, so since then I've been a counselor, for 15 years now. I've been a counselor working in the criminal justice population, actually.
Okay.
I went back into the criminal justice population.
To give something.
Yeah, to give something back, but actually also to, yes, give something back, be a part of the change process. Yeah, help others be a part of the change process. So I worked in mainly like halfway houses and assessment centers for about 10 years.
Do you find that they gravitate to you more because you've had that experience as they have?
Yeah. Yes, I feel as though they gravitated towards me more because I had that experience. But that's one of the things I've always focused on is that, okay, they gravitate towards me because I have the same experience. But however, I use that opportunity to really become learned, to really come and learn, someone with techniques and skill sets. So because of who I am, attracted them, I wanted to give them the skilled help that they truly needed. You found I wanted to give them the skilled help that they truly need, not just we're from the same place, we've both been in jail before. No, I wanted to give them some skilled help because you have these men and women that really, as you said, went through prison 4 or 5 times. So I knew that was a problem.
All right, on that note, we're going to take a break. We're going to hear a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back with Coach Hartman. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Hey, better watch Kim Korner. Don't you touch that down.
Good evening and welcome back to Kim's Corner. I'm here with Coach Hartman, Tyrone Hartman, and his book is From Boy to Man, and we were discussing his plight and what brought him to this. But I noticed you have a cage, so you're going to tell us something about this cage that you bought today.
Yes.
I hope you're not going to put me inside this cage.
No. Actually, it's very confusing when I bring this cage out. I just recently did a keynote speaking for a gentleman named Ted Green. He's a councilman. I brought this cage out. Everybody was like, what are you going to do with the cage? But anyway, I brought this cage because now being a person who studies theory, practices and behavioral change. There was a gentleman in Penn State, his name is Dr. Martin Seligman, and he had a study like 20 years ago called Learned Helplessness. And I really gravitated towards this learned helplessness and tied it into the book on some level. This cage is because he did the study, and they use dogs, legally, these dogs, and they put the dog in this cage here. Put the dog in the cage. They will put the dog in the cage, right? I'll just leave it here. They put the dog in the cage. They will, open the door and actually bring pain to the dog to see what the dog would do. So they bring pain to the dog, and the dog ran out of the cage. They did this several times, and the dog would run out of the cage. Then what happened is they brought pain to the dog, and they closed the door, right? Closed the door, the gate of the cage, and they brought pain to the dog, and they had the gate closed. So the dog cannot get out of the cage. So over a period of time, what happened was, and they studied this, that the dog actually laid down and wouldn't get back up. So when they shocked the dog again, brought pain to the dog, and opened the cage, the dog did not go out. So they actually had to go inside the cage and drag the dog out to, you know, kind of say, okay, you're free now, you can go. So that's called learned helplessness, and that's what actually takes place in people's lives, and particularly in the element of the urban environment. Constant letdown, setbacks, and failures can have a person to lay down and give up.
And just give up.
And just give up in life and say, you know what, I'm not going to try anymore. So what happened is, I'm going to put this down, okay? So what happened is, because I'm from North New Jersey, and I live in an urban environment, I've realized that over years. So I wanted to, you know, tie this into the book on some degree. On the cover of my book is From Boy to Man, and then I have a quote that I have on my shirt here. It says, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things.
And they made a song out of that too. We sang it in chorus when I was in school.
Very good. So what happens, you have this here that talks about maturity. Now on the back of the book, I have something from a gentleman named Dr. Scott Peck. And Scott Peck, he wrote a book called A Road Less Traveled. And he had a quote, he had something I took from there I wanted to put on the back of my book because it tied in with the maturity piece. It says, of the thousands, maybe even millions of risks we can take in a lifetime, the greatest is the risk of growing up. So we hear the sound of maturity from this quote to this gentleman here. The many risks we take is growing up. So now it's understood the risks or the challenges of growing up in general. Historically, biblically, they see that there's a struggle with people becoming more mature. People, you know. But however, in the concrete jungle, in the urban environment, maturity really doesn't come easy because you have those elements of learned helplessness, those elements of setbacks.
And I noticed that a lot of children now, they weren't as mature as we were when I was coming up in my generation.
Yes.
They seem to be a little less mature.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Understandable. So, and I talk about that as well. So when you see someone with their pants sagging down, a lot of people frown upon that, but see, I look at that as that's immaturity at its worst. It's like immaturity at its worst. So a gentleman may become 40 years old and then their pants start coming up. So that's the maturity is delayed when you're in the concrete jungle.
Okay, why is it delayed?
A lot of it's very dynamical. There's a lot of elements involved. You have crime-ridden streets. You have low education. You have poverty. You have lack. Just the word lack of education, lack of, you know, finances, lack of true support. So it's very dynamical. So in the urban environment, you see a lot of learned helplessness. And that's and I wanted to acknowledge that. So when I do lectures and I'm out talking, I want to always acknowledge that there's a lot of elements in the urban environment that individuals have to now become more aware so they can put more fight into this challenge of maturity. It's a challenge that has to be taken throughout the world. Everybody has to take the challenge to become mature, but in an urban environment, more of an effort has to be made. This is one of the reasons I wrote the book From Boy to Man, because I wanted to outline, hey, we got to raise our awareness because we have a lot of work to do to fight these elements.
And I noticed it's like a self-help book.
Yes, it's a self-help book.
It's a self-help book.
Yeah.
Here you have ambitious.
Ambitious.
And then you can write down.
Yes. Your journal.
It's a whole thought process. Like, I guess, you keep a little journal.
Yeah.
And I don't have my glasses on.
I'll read you one. I'll read you one. Not even a passage. I'll read you one sentence.
Ambitious, and how can this word be applied to your life?
Yes. Well, so what I did was with the book is very unique. What I did, I gave you my story within maybe like 130 pages. From growing up in Newark, selling drugs, having fun. Hip hop is in this book. Going down to state prison, transitioning out of there, and it's a career detail in here as well, up to who I am now. But I just couldn't leave individual with a book about just who I am. Because that's the old way of bringing about change, telling people what to do. Now it's talking to individuals so they can explore their own lives. So
taking the self-assessment.
Exactly. Involving themselves in the change process. So what I did was I said, okay, now since I gave them my story to inspire individuals, now I have to coach them and work with them individually because I'm a life coach. And so the book is outlined where you can read my story and then it turns into a workbook. It's called reflective journaling, where you can read what I wrote and then you can reflect on it. I'll give you something. There's a word in here, aspire. I really like that word. But what I did...
Me too. That's been my new word. And it's funny because that has been my word for the year. And when I saw your book, I saw that in there.
Nice. Or aspire. So I'll give you the last sentence on aspire. I said, go ahead and aspire to be before your want to dream expires. Because we have a lot of power within that sits dormant. And if we don't utilize it, it will expire. And this is one of the reasons why that process of maturity I was telling you about is delayed. But people are not encouraged to utilize the strength that they have within, are not motivated to utilize the strength within. It's still there. It just sits dormant, and it's kind of delayed process to that maturity, to the maturity piece. So, the book is a great platform. And
how long did it take you to write this book?
Maybe like because I worked full time and everything, maybe like 2 years with the editing and the cover, designing the cover.
What made you sit down and want to write it?
Wow. What made me sit down? I'll tell you. I was inspired. I was inspired by someone. Actually my ex-wife. I was actually inspired by her because she was an author. She's a writer as well. And that's one of the things I just mentioned to you, having a positive support system. When we're married, very positive support system at the time. And she was a writer. Actually, we produced a book for her and it went national. And to see her write and, put together ideas, and actually she's an English teacher, so being around that kind of stimulated thought within me. So that kind of inspired me to put my thoughts on paper. So I began to put my thoughts on paper, and so that's that's what kind of the motivation. That's where it all started. Having a support system, having people around you that's doing strong and positive things, powerful things, and actually you'll become someone who does that as well.
So what would you like people to get from your book? And do you recommend it for men or women or both?
Well, I always say success has no gender. Success has no gender, and men, women, ages from 13 all the way up to later developmental stage in life. However, I titled the book From Boy to Man because I'm a boy. I was a boy, and I'm a man now. But it's for men and for women, but specifically my target market is men. You follow me? And boys, because they will be able to relate to me. But I've, read Iyanla Vanzant books, for years at one point.
And where can we get your book?
We get your book very good. Excellent.
I purchased it at the event at JFK. I can't even remember the name of that event.
The event, yeah. And it was great I bumped into you. It was good to meet you.
Yes, it was.
Thank you. But the book can be purchased from my website.
Okay, give us your website.
My website is www.walkintodestiny.com. That's WALKINTODESTINY.com. WalkIntoYourDestiny.com. So, and another thing I did actually is for the summer to have another selling point. You can also catch me downtown North, across the street from City Hall. Because what I decided to do, I decided to get a vendor's license.
And so you're vending the book. So you can come downtown on Broad Street.
Right across the street.
Or you can get on his website. Excuse me. Interesting. I think it's a good self-help book. It makes you take assessment of yourself.
Yes.
And it can change everybody's life. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
No problem.
Keep inspiring our young men because they need it right now.
Yes.
It's a difficult time, especially here in the city of Newark.
I agree.
It's been a difficult time. I want to thank everybody for watching Kim's Corner. I'll see you next time.
Fabulous.